that the book that I got is called The Women of the Bible and You. So if you guys want to get it to be able to read along in the coming weeks, I'm gonna try to like do this every week. Um, it was like $10 on Amazon. It's by Ariane Williams, but I can text anybody that wants to get it. But you don't need to because I'm gonna read it. But if you want it for your own time, that's what it's called. Okay. So week 1 is about Eve, which makes sense since Eve is the first woman in the Bible. It's called Eve, God's Grace Made Real. It starts with a Bible verse and then it's like 2 pages of devotional. So I'm just going to read it and then I'll stop the recording and we can talk about it. Or if you guys don't want to talk, I can talk for a little bit, but I don't talk that much. Okay, so the Bible verse is Genesis 4:1. The man Adam knew his wife Eve intimately. She became pregnant and gave birth to Cain and said, I have given life to a man with the Lord's help. Eve, like most women you and I know, took on many roles: wife, companion, mother. But if you peek just below the surface of her story, someone much more layered emerges: a survivor, pioneer, and creator of culture. Eve was a leader who pushed the bounds of life further than perhaps even she could have imagined. We've all heard about her fateful choice to eat the forbidden fruit, as told in Genesis 3. But what happened in the aftermath of that life-altering moment? What did she learn about herself, about God, about grace, about moving on and finding new purpose? When we encounter Eve in Genesis 4:1, her life has already taken quite a few blows. In an earlier season, she had lived with her husband in a luscious garden teemed with biological diversity, where God took strolls to catch the afternoon breeze. It was a dream, but one moment had undone it all. God had banished them from their picturesque home, forcing them to work the land and her to suffer labor pains. Perhaps even worse. Suddenly, a hierarchy existed between Eve and her husband. It was a lot, but it was her new reality. Maybe you've had a taste of something like Eve's new reality. Perhaps you've lost a job, a friendship, or a marriage, and your life changed drastically. What you had or hoped for was suddenly far from reach, and you had no choice but to accept life as it was now, devoid all of the beauty and promise you once experienced. Maybe the vibrant, confident, purpose-driven person you once were shifted, and your insecurities, guilt, and shame emerged. Maybe the weight of it paralyzed you, and you had no idea how to get back to who you were and go after the life you wanted. For me, that event was a call from a nurse confirming my terrifying suspicion that I had contracted a sexually transmitted infection. Here I was, a youth minister, called, anointed, speaking, teaching, preaching, and apparently walking around with an STI. It was curable, but my shame over where I was and how I had gotten there didn't feel curable at all. I was the lowest I had ever felt. How could I look at those teenagers whom I was called to serve and encourage them to pursue a relationship with God when I felt like such a failure in my own faith? This is where Eve is so inconstructive. She shows us that survival is possible and that there is a life on the other side of disaster, and that we are much more than our painful moments. She went through the worst of the worst and somehow managed to keep evolving. Genesis 4:1 shows her expression of joy and praise for what she and God were able to do together. For the first time, a woman had given birth, and she was blown away that she had done it. It didn't matter what had happened before. She was looking at this child she and Adam had created, deeply grateful God empowered her to bring forth life. Therein lies the most powerful part of Eve's life lesson. She lost many things in that garden, but she didn't lose God. God had not given up on her. Though the narrative shows that God punished both her and Adam, banishing them from paradise, God walked out of the garden too, and journeyed with them into this new life. The new reality was harsher than what they'd known, but they still had God. No matter what life throws at you or how you may be judging yourself, hang on to your faith, knowing that God walks with you through it all. God is never intimidated by the lows of your story, but gets right in there and finds a way to bring new life out of destruction and perceived failure. I had an STI, so what? Since then, I've been ordained as an elder in my church, written this book, landed my dream job, found my dream love, and grown my love for myself. There is more glory and evolution ahead for you because God is with you and refuses to leave you, no matter what mistakes you make. Don't live in your past. God doesn't. Walk in the power of God's grace toward what promises and joy lie ahead for you. And I just realized I probably should have prayed beforehand, but I can pray when we're done. Okay, so I'll talk about my thoughts, maybe pose a question. Let me stop the recording.